Raj Soren, Black Belt Mindset Coaching. And today we have our guest, Chris Wilson, who's going to be talking about a number of different topic areas, but I'll let him introduce himself. So Chris Wilson, tell me a bit about what you do.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Raj. My mission is to give you impact and influence using the power of your voice.
That's amazing. So the power of your voice is, I'm sure, very important for a lot of people. And so what type of work do you do for individuals when you say the power of your voice?
Well, it could be somebody doing a best man speech. It could be maybe a eulogy at a funeral, those important moments of truth where you need to create an impact and influence and perhaps a memory by saying something, connecting with an emotion or a feeling in those moments that matter. Or maybe in business, it's an elevator pitch, a town hall. Again, it's a message that is a ripple that connects with people over time.
Well, that's really important time in people's lives to make that impact. And I can imagine that people can get quite nervous. So how do you help people when they're quite a bit nervous to deliver?
Well, allegedly, this isn't a stat that's mine, people can sometimes have more affinity with death than they can actually with public speaking. It's called glossophobia, and it is a real inherent phobia for some people. And really, my job is to try to get them to understand that many fears are part of humanity, whether it be falling, heights, loud noises, but they can be overcome with simple principles of practice, rehearsal, and preparation.
Interesting. I've heard the same thing. People are scared to death of speaking in public. Rather face
you
lying.
work on mindset a lot, don't you? And I'm sure we're both able to show that mindset beliefs can be overcome with work.
Very much so. How did you get into this type of coaching?
Well, I've been coaching for quite a few years, and it was actually a walk on Anglesey last May bank holiday. And I was talking a bit about where I was, and my partner sort of said, "You don't seem quite to be in the moment right now. You know, there's a beach, there's seagulls, the wind, the waves," and I wasn't quite there. And I said, "Well, I've been doing this coaching for midlife men for quite some time, and it's not quite working for me." So quick conversation back and forth, realized I liked my selling, realized I was winning competitions by speaking. And I suddenly thought, speak and serve. That is a new mantra for me. And that was May last year. And that's why I'm here now.
Brilliant. That's a great way of looking at things, speak and serve. And Anglesey is a lovely part of the world. I used to live in Bangor. So, that's a great place to get inspiration. So speak and serve. I mean, what type of individuals do you help? You said you work for companies as well as one-to-one. So what type of people approach you?
The worst answer, I guess, is anybody. But let me give you a quick example. So this morning I was working with a legal practice, and they needed to have some confidence on how to bring their inquisitivity, their curiosity to incoming sales calls. So I was training that small sales team on the power of good questions and obviously the listening technique. Tomorrow I'm going down to a company that sells underfloor heating. And again, we're working with the sales team on the mechanic of powerful questions, proposals, and then follow-up, all using the power of the telephone. So that would just be two quick examples, but it could be an individual who needs to have more power in an elevator pitch. It could be with a chief executive who or she needs to be able to command an audience better, have empathy and connect with the audience, perhaps through storytelling. Those are just examples of some things I've been doing in the last week.
That's interesting. So we're living in the virtual world as well these days through Zoom, as well as other virtual teams and Google Meets, for example. So when you're face-to-face conversation and presentation versus something virtual, how does that change?
Well, I think there's also the advent of AI is coming around the corner, and I think we are able to be replicated and almost produced in a virtual way without us even being there. But in a virtual camera, you can have almost too much connection to the camera by being too close. You can be too far away. Your framing can be in such a position where you might be doing your body language, but you can't see your hands. So even in a virtual way, there's a technique to getting connection with your audience, and also where the camera is. I'm looking at my camera, which is up here, whereas I should be tempted to look at you because that's where we're actually having a conversation. And even aspects of lighting or audio, having a good microphone. There's lots of things that we can do to try to make our connection to the audience much better than just turning up and sort of having our pajamas on, going click, record, go.
Yeah, that's a good point. There is a skill in presenting online, virtually, as well as in face-to-face. You talk about stories. I believe that stories is vitally important in a conversation and a presentation. So how do you help people with stories?
Well, I believe that absolutely, yes, stories are a key component. And we've been using stories for millennia to pass on messages through the generations that can sometimes help us survive, help us evolve. But a story really needs to connect, I think, to an emotion or a feeling. And it's a memory that enables people to understand the message. If you're a chief financial officer presenting lots of data or technical information, when you can tell the story and give people which means that, or by doing this, it will create something, I think it can just enable people to understand it better. So stories, I have 3 main stories that people should use. Ideally, what's my why? So why do you do something? What's your company story as to why the company should be doing something? And then a few examples of customer success where you take the client through an example of where the customer was when they first came to you and now where they are as a result of the work that you've done. So 3 key story filing cabinets that you can open at any time, and ideally have a structure of how you present your story quickly and with relevancy and hopefully with feeling.
That's really good to know, because they say that people make decisions based on logic or emotion. A lot of the time it's emotion, and connecting to stories, I suppose, will be, if you have a good story, it's more memorable, would you say?
Yes, yeah. And sometimes your stories will resonate and sometimes they won't, but also stories can be too long. Even on a virtual format, you'll see people fidgeting or looking away or playing with something. And just like a comedian on stage, you know that you've now lost the audience, and the art of storytelling is actually the art of rehearsal, where you practice and see what lands and what doesn't, and also check in every now and then. You might say, how is this landing with you, Raj? Am I making sense? Does this connect with you? And it's an interplay of conversation as opposed to just suddenly giving you a download of 20 minutes of what I feel is important, and actually I haven't found out what was important to you.
That's really good, because you talk about interaction and asking questions. You and I, I'm sure, have been to lots of presentations where you've sort of fallen over because you got bored or lost attention. So asking questions, what type of questions should we ask?
Well, the questions I feel should also be open questions. That generally starts with a what, when, how, who, where, why, because it's better than a closed question. If I said to you, would you like to eat mussels? Your answer is probably going to be, what would it be, Raj?
What type of mussels?
Yeah, exactly. Or if I said to you, what's your favorite type of seafood? I've now asked you a direct question, which is hopefully going to give me clues. So what would be your favorite type of seafood, Raj?
Sea bass.
Sea bass. And why sea bass in particular?
Just the flavor of it, and when it's fried in the right way, it's absolutely gorgeous, tasty.
And where was the first time you had sea bass, Raj?
Or when I was in Wales and living in Wales near Anglesey, in fact, fresh fish, locally caught and cooked at home, or we can do it, fry it on a frying pan when you're going camping as well.
How about mussels? Are mussels important to you?
Yeah, the mussels. It depends when you say mussels. Is it seafood mussels, or is it physical mussels on your body? But yes, I like mussels with cream and cooked with lots of other.
Yeah. So using that little tiny role play there, we've now learned that if we just ask the first question, which was, would you like mussels? I've only got a yes or a no, but I now know more about why you like particular seafood. You like sea bass. It was because you like to have it in Anglesey and Wales. And then even on the interpretation of mussels, you interpreted it could be these type of mussels or seafood mussels. So that's how questions can be used with power or not with relevancy.
Brilliant. Yeah. So very much agree with you. Interaction, connection, emotion, and asking the right questions. So that's really important. Thank you for that. Do you have a sort of a story to share in terms of how you've helped a particular client? Obviously, no need to mention any names.
Well, it's not a story that is specific to me, but I'll give you an example of how speaking can literally cause people fear. This particular person was in a competition and he gave a pitch to camera, and somebody behind the camera said, that was the most abject failure, worst thing imaginable, and therefore you can't proceed to the next round. And he took that so personally that actually he never wanted to speak again. In fact, the first time that his daughter was born, he said, I am so now scared of giving a father of the bride speech that I was more worried about that than I was the joy of being a father. And that's an example of how fear and anxiety can grip somebody as a result of feedback they got from somebody. And he actually went to a public format called Toastmasters, which I'm a group and advocate of. And over a period of time, his fear of speaking diminished. And now he leads conversations with his team as a senior team and conducts presentations and speeches in a virtual and a public way without even batting an eyelid.
Brilliant. That's great. A great story. When I remember about the history about Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech. How does that resonate with you?
Well, it's one actually on my own YouTube channel that I use as a reference point, because it was one of those moments in time where he connected with a movement and the mood and created change from it. But the interesting thing about that speech is that he actually delivered it impromptu. Some of the things that came out were just as a result of how he felt the audience was feeling, and then how he directed that message back based on the vibe that he felt in that particular moment of time. But yeah, one of those, or you could take Churchill, or you could take Mandela, you could take Obama. These are pivotal speeches that are made and then connect with the audience. And from that, change is something that could entail. So the beauty of speech is not to be underestimated because of what could then happen. And obviously there's also bad moments in time that we could probably reference where a speech was made that causes division and conflict.
Yes, exactly. Speaking in the moment can create a history in a positive or a negative light. You mentioned that you'd won some speaking competitions. Is that correct?
Yes, I have. Well, not too far away, but there you go. There's evidence of a little trophy. So this was again in Toastmasters. I love to compete, and it's what I think is real challenge. It's gamesmanship, and it's competing and also learning, because you're putting in yourself in places whereby you have to practice and get feedback. So yeah, that is a first place competition for what's called the division of the north of England. And I have an aspiration to continue to do that in years to come. Brilliant.
Well, congratulations on that award. And sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zones to achieve this, isn't it? We keep learning. We learn not just through success, but by failure and falling over, don't we?
Yeah, well, I'm sure, talking of falling over, you are a mindset karate champion of many sorts. So you've probably taken your fair share of feedback physically and verbally, I guess, from people in a competition format.
Exactly. I mean, as a mindset coach, I say I give stress the karate chop, and it's because I have 40 years experience in martial arts in Japanese jiu-jitsu, Aikido, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and karate chops is part of that as well. And definitely you have to learn by exposure to failure along the way, to getting things wrong, but then you improve. And it's having that muscle, isn't it? Building that mindset muscle and physical muscle memory as well. Now you're an athlete as well, I believe, as well.
Well, there's levels of athlete, Raj, in that context. But yes, I do like to do some regular crazy challenges, and I've done endurance events, ultra marathons, Ironman. It's part of my own mental health to push myself and keep myself well by going out there and doing crazy runs, swims, and biking events. Yeah,
that's brilliant. And I run a men's group called Men Let's Talk, Don't Suffer in Silence. And mental health and having men talk is very important. So you mentioned that's good for your mental health. Talking and being in groups. And tell me a bit about sort of mental health and speaking and the type of things you do. You think that's important for men as well as women?
Yeah, we're recording this in May, and it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and the theme of that is community. And for me, I think the way that AI, virtual, it seems to be that we're more connected than ever, but actually less connected to individuals. And I think the importance of going to things like Toastmasters, triathlon clubs, running clubs, chess groups, bridge, your local WI, there's places where people can hang out that are in community, and it connects back to our tribal roots, which is how we were as humans. We like to sit around fires, talk, exchange, have stories, laugh, giggle, cry. And the mechanic of speaking is part of opening ourselves up with vulnerability, bravity, and joy. And yet we seem to be in places where we're no longer either comfortable, able, or willing to speak up for ourselves. So if it's a small thing that I can do is to say to somebody today, reach out to your community, ask for help, and equally think of others that might just want your call, your arm, or your guidance, because they might not be in as good a place as you might be today.
That's great advice, Chris. The water cooler conversations, the campfire conversations, the ability to be in a physical space, the handshake, the hugs, those are sometimes missing in the virtual world. And I totally agree with you. Reach out. There's people out there struggling with their mental health. They may look totally fine on the surface, but underneath they're struggling in some way. So just being in their presence, listening to them is vitally important, and having empathy and getting to understand their world as well. So thank you for sharing that. So how do people get hold of you, Chris? Do you have a website address, YouTube channel, things like that?
Yeah, Speak and Serve. If you type that in, you'll normally find it in whatever search engine you are on. The website is speaktoserveandsell.co.uk, because I do work on selling, but my adage is if we're serving, then we can sell, as opposed to sell to serve.
Brilliant. Well, it's a great pleasure to have a conversation, Chris. I wish you all the very success and to make a real difference in Speak and Serve to audiences out there, solo entrepreneurs, businesses, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Raj. And I might have you back on my channel to talk about that karate chop principle of mindset in the future.
Absolutely. Let's sort out a date soon. Take care.
Amazing. Thank you.